Inizio da Paolo Attivissimo, giornalista e divulgatore che conosciamo tutti, buonasera. Gianni Cattaneo, avvocato specialista in diritto della protezione dei dati, buonasera.
Buonasera.
Matteo Colombo, presidente dell'Associazione Italiana dei Data Protection Officer, buonasera anche a lei.
Good evening.
Clelia Di Serio,
a professor of epidemiology and medical statistics in the University of Italian Switzerland and in San Raffaele. And good evening also to Sang-Il Kim, the head of the new division of digital transformation at the Federal Office of Healthcare Services. Good evening. You speak German and English, so I will speak English with you this evening, but you can hear me because you have a simultaneous translation. So we will, after this, make a brief translation of his answers to our questions. Thank you for being here this evening. So yes, since we have the head of the new Department of Digital Transformation in Public Healthcare Services, this shows us that also the Confederation has had, maybe was a bit late, but is now making up for that tardiness, let's say, quite quickly, right? So we're very curious to know how it is going and how the app is going in particular, which has been available since June 25th, how many people have downloaded it so far, and how many people are using it actively, and if you are satisfied with this development.
Now we have, after 5 days, 1.1 million downloads and roughly 1 million active apps. And as an example, you have downloaded the app but not activated it. That's why we have this small gap.
Quindi per ora sono stati scaricati 1,1 milioni di volte l'applicazione, 1 milione circa non è ancora attiva, è attiva, scusate, quindi c'è una differenza per questo. Come dicevamo prima, Andrea per esempio hai scaricato l'applicazione ma non l'hai ancora attivata, quindi rientri in questa fascia.
Ma ridurrò sicuramente il gap dopo.
So I will try to reduce the gap after this roundtable, yes. Are you satisfied with the trend so far, and what is the goal that you are hoping to reach in terms of the Confederation?
There's no real goal. The major goal is as many as possible, as many people as possible. But of course, the more important is not the number, the more important is who is using the app. And we want that young people who are around and traveling around, having a lot of contacts, using the app. This is more important.
Quindi per la Confederazione non è tanto non c'è un goal, quindi un obiettivo preciso. La cosa più importante in realtà è che la maggior parte delle persone, il numero più alto di persone possibili, scarichino questa applicazione, e soprattutto è importante sapere chi sono queste persone, quindi ci rivolgiamo soprattutto alle persone giovani che sono molto naturalmente in giro, più delle persone anziane che tendono invece a restare a casa. Clelia Di Serio,
So Clelia Di Serio, you are a professor of epidemiology and medical statistics, and the app for contact tracing is, of course, for the whole population. We were talking about now specifically about young people who are more active in using apps, but what are some of the critical aspects of this digital tool? Well, as a statistical expert, I can see one fundamental statistical aspect, which is the self-selection of the sample, in the sense that, as my colleague was saying, the more they are, the better, but it's also important who they are, because obviously who they are doesn't mean their name and surname, because we already talked about data protection, but if they are people who travel a lot and therefore are very much in contact with other people or not. So the important thing, I would say, is also that the segment of the population that is highest risk are the elderly people, as we have seen, and that they are able to use this app, because this is an app that is based on a very high technological content, which, for instance, in Italy, and I'm Italian, I live in Milan, in Italy, which is the country in Europe which is most advanced in terms of advanced smartphone technology, but only 40% of Italians have an appropriate technology to download this Immuni app. So this, of course, very much reduces its potential. But even if it were 70% or 80% of people who could download it, still that 20% that we're excluding may be the 20% that is most at risk, because they're the elderly people who we need to protect most, not just elderly because of their age, but maybe also elderly people with clinical histories of illnesses and so on. But we're therefore getting an information that is important, because right now any extra information we can get that adds on to the little we know is fundamental, but it cannot replace the healthcare, sanitary, political intervention. Now, what I'm concerned about is that it's not so much about data protection. That's not really my concern. And I'm surprised sometimes that young people are so concerned about data protection when they have their whole lives on Instagram and Facebook, and it's going to stay there forever with very intimate information. That's not what I'm concerned about. What I think is most worrying is when I hear people say that you can use this app to identify where the most contagions are. And that's not what it's for, because it's not based on geolocalization. That's only in Korea, for instance, only geolocalization could obtain that. And if this is just a message that arrives when I entered into contact with someone, but I don't know where, and I don't know who that person was, I only know when it happened, and maybe this person came from a totally different place, and then it's still a very limited information to me, right? So I can't consider it as a tool that can identify where the most contagions are. So another important thing is that this app doesn't really tell me. Let's suppose that we all have it. And let's suppose that we have all know that we have entered into contact with a positive person. It will tell you that it doesn't tell you if the person is positive, but only if they have been diagnosed as being positive. So maybe people who don't receive a message think that they've never had contact with people who were infected, and therefore they will be less careful, or maybe will start acting in a way that is not particularly safe. So as my colleague was saying now from the Moncucco Clinic, this could be an extra thing. It could be an additional supporting tool, but once again, it cannot be up to the citizen to prevent this disease on his own. And also, it's a totally voluntary act, the use of this app, right? So it can definitely help us to identify hotbeds, and in some regimes, I mean, they will localize you even if you don't want to, and you have to give your health data to the authorities even if you don't want to. So this is not going to be the case here. There are still very important tools for our safety and for our protection, and it's better than not having them, but it's important to understand what their use is and what they're for, so, and how we can use them, because they cannot replace the surveillance, active surveillance protocols, which are the only protocols that can really reverse and can really have the role of a true prevention. Yeah, so it's like a complementary tool. Exactly. It's like the red thread between these two panels, I would say. But Gianni Cattaneo, you as a lawyer, and you're an expert in data protection, and you have, I mean, you know perfectly well about all of these protocols, but also as a user, can you tell us what your experience was with this? Do we have to worry despite all of the restrictions? Well, as a lawyer, I can say that I'm only interested in what is written in documents, not in what is said. So I'm always looking for confirmations. But the first thing I did before I downloaded the app was writing down what my concerns were. My first concern was transparency. So if I want to know what kind of personal data is being collected, how the purposes of these treatments, and how long this data is going to be preserved or stored. This is the first concern I have, and this is what I would need to know. Secondly, I would be concerned about safety, because obviously, where did I find answers to this? Not so much in the technical sheet of the app, because here I got actually an initial shock when I read it, because it says the app is almost entirely anonymous. Now this almost and entirely and anonymous, I think, kind of clashes. But let's say I tried to overcome this first obstacle and then go on. It's definitely a very general technical sheet about the app. And so I went on to read about the privacy policy, and this is something we should all do, of course, even before we download TikTok, as we said before. And you would see that the privacy policy for TikTok is quite different from this one. But the privacy policy and kind of gave rise to more of my concerns, which I wrote down ahead of time. The second one is the data collection. So first of all, the government should tell me what is it going to do with this app, what it is going to do with these data that they are collecting. And I think you should never trust the government, even if it's Swiss. And the whole system of the app is conceived in a way so that the user cannot be identified. It says devices, and the data is reduced to a minimum, and you cannot in any way identify people, places, or devices. They do not gather or collect any data about the position of the person. This is something that is good, but only information that is crypted and concerns contacts that have taken place and that are protected. So the federal office cannot survey the users of the app, and the app wants to just establish contact with people at long distances. And another point, of course, was that they couldn't exclude that there could be a probability that a person who was informed about being potentially at risk could trace back to the identity of the contagious person due to the previous context. This is, of course, obvious, because if I receive a notification that of an infected case on some day and time last Thursday, I can just quickly think about who I talked to on last Thursday. Maybe I met only Cattaneo, and so I know that Cattaneo is probably the person who is infected. So that is where the privacy issue, I think, really arises, right? Because apart from this, it is quite easy to solve. Then the notification says that the user has been potentially exposed to coronavirus on the day that he was last in contact with someone. Okay, so these are the treatments, the processing, and the purposes are to inform, not tracing or monitoring or surveying, but informing the citizens, right? Informing about the fact that you've been in contact with someone who is at risk in terms of, in view, of course, of creating statistics, and also the storage of these this data. He said 14 years. It's going to be stored for 14 years. No, 14 days. No, I hope not, because I don't hope that in 14 years we'll still be having this problem. No, 14 days, sorry, 14 days after registration. And then, of course, the safety, where they express a commitment to follow all of the safety measures that are necessary and imposed by law. Now, of course, you have to cross this information with other information from other sources. The main sources is Article 60 on epidemics. This is something voted by the Parliament, so it's a very strong decree, and this is a real base that allows us to talk about all of these elements in quite a lot of detail, and it also prohibits the use of this data for other purposes. So the law, let's say, responds to these concerns. But we should never trust legal issues either, or the law itself. So this is another impact assessment of 52 pages about this app carried out by a legal firm, where they carefully examined, and I will spare you the details, but anyway, they examined all of the risks connected to this app and its benefits and so on. And this impact assessment is extremely positive. In fact, it allows us to make this app perfectly transparent, and I suggest that you all read it in a moment when you are relaxed and have nothing else to do. If we were to give you a grade in terms from 1 to 6, let's say, which 6 is the maximum grade, what grade would you give? I would say maybe 6 minus, so almost a top grade, just because I don't want to take on too much responsibility with the audience tonight. But the last one is the security report. We have a National Center for Cybersecurity which tested this app, and it says black on white that the app is safe. We also have a federal data protection officer who says and expressed himself on June 12th about this app and said the app complies with the data protection right, and this is an independent surveillance entity, so this is a very believable subject, and this has the purpose just of defending the interests of the citizens and of the user. So as a lawyer and as a specialist, I am not concerned, I don't have any fears, and I really suggest you download it. I have done so already, but that's a personal choice. In the end, however, it's always a personal choice. So what is the risk? And what is the benefit for society? I have chosen the benefit for society. Right, so a convincing grade. Thank you. I'm also interested in Paolo Tivissimo's opinion, because you were having fun, you were nodding and so on. What is your expert opinion? I am extremely satisfied, not just with the responses I've heard so far, but also I'm satisfied with the work that has been done so far by the Swiss universities to guarantee us as citizens to have an app that really respects all of our needs. Now, I would like to ask just how many of you have WhatsApp on your phone? How many? Yeah, well, practically all of you. How many of you have read this privacy policy on WhatsApp? None of you, I'm sure, before you downloaded it. Maybe one person, yeah? 2? Okay. Now, WhatsApp, of course, is the typical social network app which takes our data, right? Our personal data. It, for instance, takes your agenda, all of your phone numbers that you have on your phone. All of the phone numbers you have are already on the Facebook server right now because, as you know, that is Facebook is the owner of WhatsApp. And this is something maybe that not everybody knows. But it's funny to see how people are very anxious about downloading an app that has all of these levels of guarantee, but they freely download WhatsApp without any second thought. I've already downloaded SwissCovid, the app, on my smartphone, and now I have the updated version even, and it works perfectly. And I have to say that among the many apps I have on my phone, that is the one I'm least concerned about, because at any time I can, if I want to, deactivate it. And as a journalist, I just have one problem. It could happen, just like it could happen for a doctor or for a lawyer, that I have to meet up with people whose identity I need to protect. And that meeting should not be traceable, right? So I could even guarantee beyond any doubt that it's not traced by leaving my phone at home or by this function which says suspend tracing, which I can deactivate and reactivate whenever I want. So all of this to make the app as safe as possible has been done. But vice versa, we have the question of the efficacy, right? How effective is it really? We've never really done anything like this. We are doing an experiment, all of us together, in an emergency situation. And we don't know if this app is going to really work. But my question in reality is the contrary. Do we really want to run the risk of having a tool that could work and not using it? If this app saves one person or 10 people, is it really worth installing it? We often are called upon, even by social networks, to install little games because they will save someone, or, I don't know, plant a small plant in Africa or whatever. Here we have a concrete occasion, as it has been illustrated so far, of being useful to society with an app that is zero risk. And frankly, I have to say, I am quite calm. So this is another very strong advocate of the app. Very good. We also have Matteo Colombo, who is the president of the Italian Data Protection Officer Association, which is the specialist association for data protection. And we debated just now in our first panel, we talked about the app Immuni, which is active in Italy. And we want to talk to you not so much about the technological aspect, which, as we have seen, is quite reassuring, but more about the organizational aspect, especially in Italy, but also it's true of Switzerland. So what are the consequences of a notification of a positive case, especially in terms of the testing that needs to be done after that and so on? Well, there are two important issues since this debate has shown that this maybe is the least dangerous app that we could possibly have on our smartphone. I think there are two issues that arise, which have to do more with data protection or knowledge. First, it's understanding how the algorithm works, because the algorithm, when does it really show me a positive case? Well, technically, all the information tells us that the algorithm shows a positive case when you are in contact for more than 15 minutes or are at a certain distance of a person who is later positive, detected as being positive for more than 15 minutes. But the first issue, as I say, is a technological issue. So what happens is that to defend our data in a very strong way, we have used Bluetooth technology in this app, which is not as precise, really, because Bluetooth technology is made in a way that if I am facing him with my back and I have a smartphone and we're close, the app will say I'm at 5 meters away and not 1 meter away. And it doesn't matter if he has a FFP2 mask and I have just a normal surgical mask. So it could be that this app could, let's say, be more of a guarantee, and therefore send an alert even if I'm not really positive.
Falso positivo.
So it could be a false positive, exactly, yes. So what needs to work here? And here I can say, as an Italian person, this is the weak point of Italy right now, in certain regions at least. What needs to work is the tracing. So let's say the exam we make. So if I don't take this test immediately, right, if we don't do the swab immediately, I could just stay home, or I could be, and I could be, I don't know, self-isolating myself to protect others, but not be positive at all, reality, because I don't know. I haven't done the swab. So this is an issue of precision, the precision of the device and of the tool. To be precise, it needs to be connected to a series of different situations. And I have to say, in Switzerland, you're much more organized from this point of view. And from this point of view, I would be totally calm. I am totally calm. Because it's true that a lot of virologists have said that this app in reality doesn't really have a huge function, but we have to think of it in a total organization together with other tools such as the swab and the mask and the Bluetooth, right? So if we see it in this context, it will work. Then there's another interesting issue, which is the interoperativeness, so to speak, because as an Italian today, I can come here, but will my app talk to the Swiss app or the German app? I mean, there's a project like this out there right now. It's a project that hasn't been developed yet, but maybe during the second part, I will talk about other apps, which are the regional ones, and which maybe with the Swiss people, as Swiss people, you can maybe use when you are going to other European states. Yes, we'll go back to this topic with our second round of questions, but I will go back to Sangil Kim 1 second, because, and you are the head, as I say, of the new digital transformation for public health care and responsible for the new SwissCovid app. And some experts have had doubts about the reliability of this app. We have already underlined some of the risks, the risk of abuse, the risk of mistakes, even linked to the Bluetooth technology, false alarms, or even digital attacks or data robbery, so to speak. What measures are you taking to reduce these risks?
To be honest, not much. I make a simple example. Now we have 1 million apps around in Switzerland. And until today, we have more than 10 people who are now use this COVID code to activate the warnings. So 10, we assume 10 more will be warned, so 100. So 100 will be tested, and maybe only 10 are positive. We have found 10 more, which we never would have found before. Yeah. We have 10 more. So we go the risk that a lot of false positives, but it's okay. Everybody can be tested, and everybody can stay at home, as you explained in the beginning, because they get the earnings, because by law it's okay. That's the major added value.
Ci ha spiegato insomma in modo, con una battuta, che non hanno fatto molto per ridurre il rischio. In realtà la cosa importante è soprattutto quello di riuscire a rintracciare anche falsi positivi. Finora 1 milione circa di persone che hanno attivato l'app, e di questi codici Covid che quindi sono stati immessi da una persona testata positiva, sono stati trovati quindi 10 codici Covid, quindi 10 persone positive al test, sono state immesse insomma nel sistema, e questo ha permesso, se facciamo una media che una persona diciamo positiva ha incontrato altre 10 persone, arriviamo 10 per 10, 100 persone che sono state testate. Di questi 100 ne abbiamo 10 appunto positive, quindi vuol dire che abbiamo trovato su 100 ne abbiamo trovate 10, 90 non sono risultate positive, però ci ha fatto fare un passo in avanti, e questo è, diceva Sangil Kim, è il valore aggiunto di questa app.
Sì, in fondo è un investimento nei falsi.
So yes, it's an investment in false alarms. Yes, go ahead.
It was mentioned maybe the app can protect me or the app can protect others. No, it don't. The only thing is we can find other cases and we can break the infection chain. That's it. So it's an act of solidarity. It was mentioned a lot today. I'm really happy that you all understood the way how the app works. And this is the major value of the app. It's really simple. Yeah, it's a very simple technology. We are only measuring the signal strength of Bluetooth. That's it, not more. Yeah, and so it's limited. But we have the chance to find new infections and to break the chain. That's the added value. And very important, what, I don't know, you said it, the app alone doesn't work. We need the surroundings, the infrastructures around. And the biggest infrastructure is get tested. And we motivated people to test because without costs here in Switzerland, and also stay at home. So to break the chain means quarantine. Self or order, doesn't matter, just stay at home.
Infatti l'applicazione lo dice in modo molto chiaro.
Right, and the app in fact says this very clearly. It's not a way of protecting yourself from the virus is still out there.
Che altrimenti non si sarebbero trovati, quindi naturalmente tutto questo serve alla causa. Si è parlato molto di solidarietà, quindi si è tornati su alcuni temi che abbiamo già affrontato in questo momento. Solidarietà vuol dire anche se ricevo questa notifica io devo stare a casa. Questo sarebbe un atto di grande solidarietà.
Sì, quindi siamo in un ecosistema.
Right, so we are in an ecosystem, I would say. There's the app, and then we have the testing system, we have the swabs, quarantine, and all kinds of other elements that are part of that ecosystem, right? And now I would like to ask you, Cattaneo, you promoted the app in your first comment very convincingly, exactly, and you explained very much in detail because you analyzed all of the documentation that very few people have actually read, much less analyzed, and we thank you very much for doing that for all of us. And an important point, I would say, in this application of this system is based on recommendations. But the border between recommendation and obligation sometimes is not so clear. So are there also obligations that could derive from if I receive a notification of contagion, for instance, but I just don't do anything about it, or I ignore it and I don't therefore allow other people to get tested or to take care, let's say, and I don't avoid infecting other people. So I mean, I'm doing an act that is not exactly a solidarity act. Yes, well, there is definitely the issue of solidarity responsibility, I would say. And as a good lawyer and a legal expert, my point of reference are the old regulations in the penal code, because obviously the risk of spreading an illness is a crime that is established by our penal code. But it's not a crime in this case. It wouldn't be a crime if it's just you out of negligence. You need to have intent. So in this case, if you get a notification that you got into contact with a person at risk, would be insufficient to create an obligation, let's say, of immediate self-isolation or anything like that. So no, yes, we do have to, I think, relax on that point. There are, of course, some issues that are related to the pandemic law, as you were reminding us earlier. So you have to do the test, and if you are positive, there could be some procedures you need to follow that are mandatory sometimes. So, for instance, isolation in case you really get a confirmation that you are infected. But this is always in view of the app. I would say it's important to keep in mind that there is no obligation of inserting your COVID code into the app if you are infected. That, once again, is a choice that is up to the single individual, just like there is no mandatory obligation of doing the test, of getting tested, just because you got a notification of being in contact with someone who is positive. So from this point of view, I would say maybe more clarity in the communication would be welcome at all levels, federal, cantonal, and concerning the obligations in terms of the law and the recommendations and the difference between the two. From this profile, for instance, I read that in the last COVID decree from the General Council, this is not exactly a mandatory thing because it says people respect the recommendations of the General Healthcare Office. Now, when you say this, is it just a recommendation, or does this order make it into something more, almost like a legal obligation? So from a legal point of view, I would give a negative answer, because the legal basis needs to be clear and certain and also in order to create these very broad restrictions we have been living under. But let's say the hope is always that this can be very clear, also on the media, clear what is an obligation and what is a recommendation, so that the trust in the system is always intact. Well, in recent months, we've been bombarded by data about people who have the virus, people who got better, people who died, and now Claudia Di Serio wants to go back to ask you, what are the limitations in terms of mathematical limitations and data analysis limitations when you try to calculate the spread of this pandemic? How much can we rely on this data? How reliable is it? Well, I would say the models are always a representation of reality. So beyond this, the technicism of the mathematical model, it's like a recipe. It all depends on the quality of the ingredients. So mathematical models, the ones we have today, have definitely yielded a very limited information. Maybe we were too trusting in the beginning in terms of the institutions, because in the moment of the panic, we hoped that the mathematical model could predict exactly when the epidemic would stop, when it would increase, and so on. But as I say, the mathematical model needs ingredients like basic information, like a death rate, for instance, for an illness which we cannot calculate yet today. We don't have a real number of how many infected people are out there. So the mathematical model has a rather limited use, I would say, in terms of indicating the trend in the short or medium term. For instance, we estimated that the information on the result of a test always comes in with a delay of almost a week on average, which means that the mathematical model that would like to predict precisely, maybe based on data that it gets today, is predicting only the past, really. Because, therefore, the mathematical models do work, but maybe what we need more is the network that can use artificial intelligence to put together a large amount of data about mobility, movements, information that is global, and that can be used maybe more to give us macro information about the situation. But I would say, no, we would never get 100% certainty from a mathematical model. So there are some limitations, yes, and we have also seen that a lot here in Switzerland, because there is still a big debate about between experts in epidemiologists and virologists, experts in the Confederation who are trying to debate how we can predict the number of contagions and so on. Also in the stage when the epidemic is picking up a bit again and is increasing slightly, there are different assessments from different experts and also authorities. So to go back to Paolo Tivissimo, we have looked at the benefits of this app now. We have seen some limitations as well. And I would like to know from you, these false positives and false negatives, what do they imply? Because this is a term we have heard a lot, and we've already explained it before with Sanglil, but we would like to know more from you. What are these imprecisions that come from the app exactly? Well, we have to consider that we are using a tool that is a smartphone for a function that it was not conceived for. So we're adapting a technology that was conceived for a totally different purpose. Inevitably, this means that there's going to be a certain rate of mistakes, right, of errors, and it's never going to be 100% precise. To give you an example, I have an app on my phone, and don't worry, it totally respects privacy. It is right now scanning all of the Bluetooth devices that are present right here in its range, and I see 114 listed. Now, out of these 114, none would be considered by SwissCovid because they're too weak, right? But this gives us an idea of how difficult it is to obtain a certain precise data. Now, the app by its nature is not decided, right? Because correctly, it has been decided to use it only as a support, not as a replacement. So the contact tracing, the traditional contact tracing, is still fundamental. And this app is simply an extra tool, a suggestion, let's say, for the user that says, oh, you could have been in contact with someone, so go and get tested. That's it. Once you understand this limitation, the issue of its relative imprecision really gets reduced drastically, because I prefer having a false alarm and maybe staying home and not going to see my parents, or going to get tested instead of risking, right? Why should I risk? So there are a lot of situations where this tool, which was very quickly invented, could fail. So we talked about this already, the mask and the proximity when we have a window in between us or a plexiglass division or whatever. But that is not really a big problem because the criteria of this application are being simply a first step, a suggestion. And I think this is really important to understand for the users. But this all works only if we have installed it, of course. So it's a little bit like the smoke detector in your home, right? So we always take out the batteries because it always keeps going off uselessly. But the one time it does work, we're going to be very happy we left the batteries in. So I'm going to install it, I'm going to keep it, and I hope I will never have to use it. But I think it's really a useful tool, even if its error rate is potentially quite high. I prefer having an extra alert than one too few. So, Mr. Colombo, just about the regional apps, I wanted to ask, we're interested in having regional apps because we're a confederation of cantons, of course, but also because we're about to leave for the holidays, all of us. So in Lombardy or in Sicily, for instance, they have regional apps already. Do we need to download them necessarily if we go there? Or if we don't download them, are there sanctions? Well, no. In Italy, we have 20 regions. Not all of them have an app, and this is the first point of view we need to consider. They developed them without talking too much to the Italian authorities even, and some of them are geolocalized still. So, I mean, they're not even based on Bluetooth, but for instance, in Sardinia, they geolocalize. The app they've developed geolocalizes the user. So if you want to take a boat and go to Sardinia, you need to download the app. And you can be geolocalized, right? But if you go to Sicily, and just to talk about the coverage, you need to download Sicilia Sicura, the app that they have developed for that region. So these are apps that, yes, are voluntary, on a voluntary basis, of course, but you are all strongly invited to do so. For instance, in Lombardy, we have Alerta Lomb, which employers, for instance, are almost forced to download. And this, I think, is a much broader topic, and I'll just take 1 minute of your time, because we are reaching a certain kind of capitalism of surveillance, right? These government-created apps, I think, do respect privacy. So if we talk about European apps, right? Now, what is it that we are legitimizing somehow? We are somehow legitimizing these mini regional apps that often don't follow guidelines, and especially corporate apps, because we have banks, we have big insurance companies that have their own personal apps for their employees. Now, today we're already in a smaller sphere, right, where we are still in a reality, but we have our virtual reality as well. If we go to a big company today, there is facial recognition everywhere. And at that point, I would say yes, because we have a centralized system, and until the data stays on my device, just like the Swiss app, for instance, I can just check my device and no one else controls it. But when that regional app is based on a centralized system where the data is stored, then, or when a company stores the data of its employees, when I have a facial recognition in every city that I go to, then, and this data goes to a centralized system, then the big topic is the safety and the security of that data. Now, we have a lot of cases already in Holland, but not just in Holland, of violation of personal data that has taken place. So they just come in and take our data. That is another topic. And we need to think that, I mean, we shouldn't legitimize just any app. That's what I think. I mean, we shouldn't think that if the app is created by a public body, for instance, then it is necessarily a correct app, right? These government-created apps are definitely correct because we have invested so much on it. They have published, they have researched, and they've developed them in a correct way. But when we talk about the regional apps, the citizen apps, the corporate apps even, I would say they're not as safe. And that, I think, is something you should think about. You should think both in terms of the operators and also the European guarantors, because those apps are much more dangerous. Right, so here we're discovering a world that we didn't maybe know existed or we weren't so aware of. But to get back to, apart from the regional apps, to get back to the point we were mentioning concerning national apps that can be used in other countries as well, let's ask Sangil Kim, for instance, how the state of affairs can yield novelties maybe about this important issue, this interoperativity, as it's called by the experts.
That's really simple.
It doesn't work.
I have on my phone 2 tracing apps. SwissCovid, of course, and Immuni. Not because I'm traveling to Italy, because I just wanted to try it out. So,
Okay.
But only one of them can be activated at once. Apple and Google are not allowing to use several apps in parallel. Only one which is using the API, the new function from Apple and Google. And that was a decision by Apple and Google. Each country, only one app we're using, Apple, Google, health authority, the government is saying this is our app.
Ecco, quindi questo è molto interessante, ci sono dei limiti perché Google e Apple impongono praticamente a ogni paese di utilizzare solo una versione dell'applicazione. Sangil ha scaricato le 2 app, quella svizzera e quella italiana, però può utilizzare qui in Svizzera solo quella svizzera, quindi ci sono anche dei limiti. Torniamo magari al discorso che abbiamo fatto nella prima tavola rotonda, ecco, di questi grandi gruppi che sono disponibili per fare questo tipo di sviluppi, però pongono anche dei limiti dettati anche da motivi economici o commerciali, insomma, ecco. E per gli altri paesi ci saranno degli sviluppi per la Germania, per l'Austria, ci sarà questa nei paesi dell'Unione Europea.
Okay, now Immuni and SwissCovid are not exchanging data, but maybe in 2 months, in 3 months, they can exchange data. And then I don't care. I only need one app, and I can travel around in Europe, and they all will exchange data, and I will be warned by Italian people who have been in contact with me, maybe here or maybe in Italy, and then I'll be warned. So this exchange will be possible on a technical level. Our problem in Switzerland is we are not in the EU. On the diplomatic and the legal level, there needs to be an agreement, and this is hard to get. So technically, we will be ready in 2 months. I assure that, I guarantee that. But on the legal side,
Quindi qui passiamo anche alla parte legale ma anche politica. Noi potremmo fare, probabilmente a livello tecnico siamo pronti in 2 mesi per fare comunicare le applicazioni, per esempio Immuni e la nostra Svizzera. Il problema è che la Svizzera non è nell'Unione Europea, quindi diventa un problema legale perché sarà molto difficile trovare appunto un agreement quindi, con l'Unione Europea.
Yes, so we have some limitations that are also given by the Nice agreement or not, but here we can also have a round of questions now that we have received from the audience that has written to Lugano Living Lab. I would maybe start with Paolo Tevissimo, who is very good at reassuring us. And one question is, do you think that the privacy of the users is really protected and safe from the use of third parties? The technical answer would be yes. That's it, period, absolutely. There is, I think the greatest thing about SwissCovid and about Immuni as well is that the entire country is guaranteed from digital crimes, from the stealing of data, because there is no data to steal. Because on the central servers, there is nothing. They're empty. They only have codes and numbers. I mean, they don't have any sensitive data, and there's no link to our identity. And that's why I am totally calm when I suggest it. And what do you say, Matteo Colombo? Do you think that, what do I do about people who said that masks were useless, going against the opinion of experts, and still today they're going against the opinion of experts? Why should I trust this app then? Well, I wouldn't want to be polemical, but I saw and I analyzed the documents and the rules and so on. And I think that there is absolute safety. I think there is transparency. It doesn't matter what happened in the past, what was said in the past. We need to look ahead. And this app, as I said, I have no doubt about installing it. It's safe. And I would like to talk to you as well, Professor Di Serio, because you also talked about or mentioned some negative aspects as well, because there's a whole part of the population that cannot access this app, as you mentioned before. I was very struck by the fact that in an iPhone, for instance, you need to have an iPhone 6 or more to download, or say 6S, okay. So it's a very advanced technology. Yes, and as I think that Paolo Tivissimo was saying before, right? The usefulness of this application really depends on what the purpose is. I mean, if we're able to protect our grandparents, our parents in this way, or if we receive a message, maybe we don't go to a meeting where there was a lot of people present because we are not sure what could happen, and maybe I put myself in self-isolation, maybe during the summer, even if I have these symptoms and so on, they become they're as specific as the swab, because in the end, in the summer, we don't have a lot of symptoms of this kind usually. So apart from the fear that a lot of people have to get tested, because a lot of people say, oh no, I have to go on holidays, but I got the message, but if I go, then I can't go on holidays anymore. So I would say that we do have a moral obligation of putting ourselves in self-isolation and call the doctor to just keep the symptoms under control. Now, I have to say that now, during the summer, the symptoms already predict very much what could happen, for instance, in the winter. In the winter, we have so many different symptoms that are similar to this, so it's much more important to get tested for this virus because we don't know which virus we have. But we still need to have a virtuous health behavior, right? So this needs to be something that we all need to have. Yes, so it needs to be a tool of interrupting the contagion chain, exactly. And we also received some questions, practical questions for Sang-gil Kim. In fact, when we met in Vienna, I asked you about the meaning of your name, and you said Sang-gil is a Korean origin, and Sang is the star, I believe, and Sang-gil means a star that goes towards the west. So he is a star that has come to us, to the west, to explain how we can solve these issues, especially in terms of the public health office. So one user asks us, my employer, do I need to send him a screenshot of the notification that I got on the app so I can stay home? If I need to be in sudden isolation because I got a notification, how should I behave with my relatives, with my friends, with a bar or restaurant where I had dinner? Do I just have to say, okay, goodbye, I received a notification, or now I'm infected, stay home as well? Or what happens after a person practically receives one of these notifications where it says, okay, be careful, you possibly got infected on 18th of May?
The first recommendation on the phone is call the hotline and stay at home until you know better what kind of contact it was. Was the contact really a qualified contact, that the potential that you got infected is really high or not? And this is done by an interview of the hotline. These are dedicated healthcare people who know exactly what to ask, how to ask, and then they can identify if this contact is relevant or not. If it is relevant, then they are sending you to the cantonal physicians who are doing the classical contact tracing. And from that point on, you have to give your name, you have to give your identity, of course, then it's not voluntarily, but as you want to get maybe money back, your earnings back, then of course you have to de-identify yourself. But it's also voluntarily, as you told, it's voluntarily. And with that information, the classical contact tracing people tell you what to do and how to do, and also then you would get these attest if you want, the certificate to get your money if you want. But today the experience is most people are not going to ask for the certificate, not in Switzerland, because a lot of people, they can work at home, or their employers say, it's okay, stay at home. Also, it's 10 days maximum But if you get the information 5 days ago, then it's only 5 days left. You have to be isolated, or in quarantine, sorry.
Ecco, quindi cerchiamo di riassumere perché è una, diciamo, una procedura molto dettagliata. Ecco, se uno riceve questo avviso di notifica, chiama l'infoline dell'Ufficio federale della sanità pubblica e gli esperti, sono dei medici, degli specialisti della salute, valutano, fanno una valutazione del caso e poi danno una raccomandazione alla persona. Nel medesimo tempo, oltre che telefonare, uno è invitato, insomma, a rimanere a casa per evitare di contagiare altre persone. Se, diciamo, il caso presenta una certa rilevanza, poi oppure se una volta che è stato fatto il test la persona risulta positiva al test, a quel punto lì entra in gioco il medico cantonale, quindi l'equipe del medico cantonale, il contact tracing classico che poi procede a ricostruire. Sono dei detective praticamente, possiamo chiamarli così, che ricostruiscono la catena dei contagi per trovare altre persone potenzialmente infette. Per quanto riguarda l'aspetto economico, se è una quarantena volontaria non c'è, diciamo, l'indennità di perdita di guadagno. Se però è una quarantena con certificato medico che diventa poi in isolamento, ecco, in quel caso lì c'è un pagamento di 10 giorni dell'indennità di perdita di guadagno. Se però uno ha dovuto aspettare 5 giorni perché sono venuti magari 2 o 3 giorni per ricevere il risultato del test, abbiamo visto per esempio prima in Italia, anche lì bisogna sempre aspettare, a quel punto lì non avrà diritto a 10 giorni, ma avrà diritto a 5 giorni, però Sang-il Kim ci diceva anche che molti oggi lavorano da casa e quindi ecco, il danno è limitato. Ecco.
Right, so we are about to reach the end of the second panel. I would like to thank all of our guests very much. Thank you to Paolo Attivissimo, Gianni Cattaneo, Matteo Colombo, Clelia Di Serio, and Sang-il Kim. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. However, we are not totally finished because, as the mayor had promised, he would come back to the stage to conclude our evening and invite us to download and activate the app. So we're very curious to know more. Although everyone has told us this evening that it is very voluntary, it's absolutely voluntary and safe. Now, for all of those who were not able to listen to all of our debate, you can also watch this meeting, this session, let's say, on the Lugano Living Lab website and listen to our debate that we've had this evening, if you haven't had a chance to watch it live. And also, if you have any questions in the audience, we would be happy to take your questions. And also, we thank you all very much again for being here, and also the people who have been watching live streaming, who have been sending in questions. Thank you all very much for your participation. Right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience and for being here until the end. I hope that these two panels were interesting to you, were stimulating, and have awakened your interest. I myself found these comments, all of these interventions very, very stimulating. All of them are experts in their fields and very interesting to listen to. I have to say that I'm not giving you this answer just to yourselves, but I also told this to a journalist from Tele Ticino just 5 minutes ago. And
abbiamo sentito veramente degli esperti anche di sicurezza che hanno detto in modo chiarissimo cosa pensano. Abbiamo sentito anche persone che magari non erano così esperti, che hanno detto che in fondo sul loro telefonino, come peraltro anch'io, hanno decine di app che sono molto meno sicure di questa. Abbiamo sentito anche che in fondo quello che è emerso è anche, pur sapendo che magari ognuno di noi poteva pensarla diversamente dal Consiglio federale, dal Consiglio di Stato, da un municipio, da un sindaco, da un municipale, ma che comunque in Svizzera credo che sia emersa la consapevolezza che dei nostri governi ci si può fidare e che se sbagliano possiamo comunque dire la nostra. Quindi anche questo è democrazia. Per cui credo che alla fine, al di là del fatto che abbiamo delle risposte chiarissime, perché quando sento Paolo attivissimo, che conosco, gli altri signori li conosco per nome, e l'avvocato Cattaneo, che sono esperti, che basano la loro vita su questa attività, ecco, come fai a non dire sì, la scarico, sì, mi fido? Però alla fine credo che c'è anche una questione di fiducia nelle istituzioni, nel nostro paese, nella capacità di rinnovarsi. Siamo stati definiti il paese che ha affrontato meglio la pandemia. Adesso non è per dire siamo più bravi degli altri, io non lo so questo, però sicuramente l'abbiamo affrontata tutti in modo molto serio. E credo che questo, tutto sommato, sia un plus che ci permette di dire scarichiamo l'app, facciamo un dovere morale, come diceva il dottor Garzoni, e ogni tanto è anche bello continuare in quella scia di solidarietà che abbiamo visto in questi 2 mesi. Solidarietà anche quello di fare una scelta in funzione degli altri, non soltanto di noi stessi, perché l'abbiamo sentito, non è questa app che ci fa guarire se avessimo noi il Covid, ma che fa sì che assieme ad altre misure costituisce una filiera positiva che potrebbe permettere comunque alla rete sanitaria di superare determinati problemi. Per cui alla fine sì, senz'altro, senza grossi dubbi, vediamo come fare, perché io ho un secondo problema, che non sono molto pratico in queste cose, per cui cercheremo di scaricarla nel migliore dei modi, però la volontà di farla c'è e con molta convinzione. Grazie mille a tutti, grazie a Giada, grazie ad Andrea, veramente bravi, e mi auguro, tra l'altro, ecco, continueremo a fare un piccolo spot pubblicitario il 30 di luglio faremo come Lugano Living Lab una serata ancora sul Covid, il Covid mobilità, e poi, se ci sarà spazio, ancora a fine d'agosto o entro fine agosto, il Covid e l'economia, rispettivamente tutte le problematiche che abbiamo vissuto e che sentiamo leggendo i giornali, sentendo la radio e guardando la televisione. Ecco, per cui grazie di essere qui questa sera, speriamo di vedervi ancora numerosi ai prossimi appuntamenti. Buona serata a tutti e ancora grazie.
Grazie Marco Moratori, grazie mille.
Sì, grazie.
Anche da parte nostra, grazie per essere intervenuti questa sera, per averci anche raggiunti di persona, è stato un grande piacere, è stato un grande piacere comoderare con te questa serata, Andrea, e arrivederci a presto.
Anche per me è già un grande piacere, ci vediamo presto con i temi annunciati dal sindaco. Buona serata e grazie ancora.
Buona serata a tutti.